Hello and welcome to lecture 3 of the course, and in this lecture we shall be discussing the use of databases in our application and also why we don't need Yii, and we shall see what Yii actually is. So let's begin with databases in the MVC programming paradigm. A web-based application, as we all know, becomes really useful when it acquires long-term memory. That means when it can store data to and retrieve data from a database. In what follows, we shall only consider relational databases. And when the term database is used, it should be understood as a relational database. In that context, we must address two fundamental issues from the very beginning. The first is how to connect our application to an existing database. And the second is what tools are available to manipulate the contents of our database from within our application. Before we proceed, you can download the code for all models, views, and controllers that we shall be talking about from the link given in the description below. And of course, you have to move these models, views, and controllers to the folder xampp/htdoc/IC. Also, you need to create the database IC. And to do that, in the address bar of your browser, you type localhost/phpMyAdmin, and through the control panel, you can create the new database and give it the name IC. The compressed file you have downloaded contains also the file company.sql that you can import in the database IC and create the table company there. And please examine its structure and its contents. So how we connect to a database? Connecting our application to the database is very, very simple. You just edit the file db.php in folder config, and you see the code required to do so below. Now, the IC Yii2 template is already configured to connect to the database IC of our MySQL server. So actually, you don't have to do anything in case you use the IC template. The next question was how to manipulate data in the database from within our application, and there are two options available for that. The first is fairly traditional, is that you may write a pure SQL statement and then use an execute type of command to make your statement run. And as you'd expect, this option is available in Yii2. Or, and that's the second option, is for the MVC framework to offer an ORM facility. And ORM is an acronym for Object Relational Model. That means it offers a model so that database tables can be declared as ORMs. And for such model, it provides predefined methods that allow manipulation of the records stored in the database as objects. These methods are actually a kind of pseudo-SQL language, and before being executed, they are translated in proper SQL. For example, such a method in Yii2 is written like that. Xtable is an ORM model, and then you have find all, which, as you guess, it translates actually to an SQL select all statement. One of the benefits of the ORM approach is that it makes your application more or less immune to the particularities of the various SQL dialects by transferring this burden to the framework. And of course, you have to pay for the translation effort. Nothing comes for free. So what is the ORM of Yii2? The ORM of Yii2 is actually ActiveRecord. It's called ActiveRecord. And when in Yii2 you declare a class as class company, for example, extends Yii2/db/ActiveRecord, instead of using class company extends model, as we have done in the previous lecture, what you imply is that there will be a table in your database in which you can store and retrieve objects of the type company, and you are provided with several predefined methods of the model ActiveRecord to do that. Let's now have a closer look to the most common methods of model ActiveRecord. First of all, in all ActiveRecord models, you should have the public static function table name that actually links your model to the underlying table in the database. And you see how it is written there. Then let's proceed to the methods. You see, you have if company is an ActiveRecord model, you can write things like that. Company find condition all, company find condition 1, company find select fields criteria all, company find 1 by ID, company update all, provided some condition is met, and company delete all, provided some condition is met. So these are all quite self-explanatory, and you guess the effect of each one. Notice that all the above methods are methods that operate on data already in the table. So the question naturally arises how you insert data in the table in the first place. And you do that by using the predefined method save. And you see how it is used here. $x is an object of the class company, and company itself is an ActiveRecord. Right now, we don't have any guideline how to write code involving ActiveRecords. For models, it was quite straightforward. And here comes Yii2, and it suggests a solution through Yii. And what is Yii? Yii is a code generating tool embedded in the Yii2 package. And roughly speaking, you provide as input any table of your database, and you get as output the code for the model that corresponds to the table, the views and the controller that allow CRUD operations on that table. And CRUD is an acronym standing for create, read, update, and delete. And you can then incorporate the code produced in your application and thus save time and effort, or at least that is the claim. You can invoke Yii from IC by typing the following address in the address bar of the browser. It is localhost/ic/Yii. It says, welcome to Yii, a magical tool that can write code for you. And it provides you with many generators. And we shall pick the model generator. You have a menu up there. And you have there are quite detailed instructions. So we'll try to produce a model, an ActiveRecord model for our table. It's quite clever, and it recognizes that the tables in the underlying database. It and completely gives us the name from company. It's going to be in the models folder. We don't have any relations at the moment. And let's have the preview. And you see what file it will create, and you type generate. and it gives you a success message. So let's go to CRUD generator. And we have to be a bit careful on how to type things in the text box provided. So I want a CRUD grid for company, and off I go. And it asks me to create a search model class as well. The controller comes next. The path to the views folder. I don't want any PZACs. And you see it has created the views company folder straight away. And I generate the code. Once Yii has produced the necessary code, we must also adjust our main menu so we can call the corresponding actions. Here at the left, you see actually the code produced by Yii. You have a company controller. In the models, you have the company and the company search model. And in the views, you have a folder called company. Yes. And here I come around and I just edit the layouts main.php. And now under the label company, I just call company index, which is an action of the company controller there. Okay, and that is the only change I have to make in my main menu. And here is the Yii company controller in action. Admin, and you enter the IC application. Straight away, we go to the company index, and the company's grid appears. You see the data columns there. You see the search form up there, and these are the control buttons in the action columns. If you go through it, in the left-hand corner, you see the identifier of the action. If I press delete, for an warning message appears. Let's view at the company. It needs quite some work to be done on the appearances. Let's try to edit the company. Okay. And now let's try the hard test and try to edit the company 103 by giving the ID through the address bar. And straight away, it is ready to do that. That's not very nice in a multi-user environment. Apparently, they don't use the post method to pass parameters. And let's have a look at the filtering capabilities there. Adding extra conditions. Okay. And let's go back to index and then log out. But let us examine the code that Yii produced. Let's see some details. Let's have a look at the model company and how this ActiveRecord model has been bound to the table company through the function table name. Let's have a look at the model company search. That is actually a select statement with some filtering options. Let's have a look at action index of the company controller that uses the company search model. Let's have a look at the view index.php in views company and examine there how the all-important Gridview widget is used. And once you have a good look at all this, I strongly believe that this should be the last time you use Yii. Why I oppose the use of Yii? First, I think that it shifts the attention of the developer to the controller part of the application, and very easily you find yourself using model fields when writing statements in the controller actions. The implications of such an approach are profound. It leads the developer to forget any object-oriented programming principles he should apply, thus taking a heavy toll on the design and maintenance of the application. And in the long run, this leads to what is known as the fat controller lean models effect. In a sense, too many lines of code in the controller part, too few lines of code in the model part. Another point I don't like about the code produced by Yii is that it strongly couples the database structure to the structure of the models of the application. As a result, table field names are freely sprinkled through models, views, and controllers with many long-term consequences. For example, if you change even one of your table field names in the database, this will imply an extensive editing of many models, controllers, and views. A quick review of the lecture. The concluding remark there is that you should avoid using Yii and that you should adopt a formalism for writing things instead. And we shall talk about such a formalism in the next lecture. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe, please support.